Welcome, everyone, to Music Junkies, a podcast about people sharing extraordinary stories about how music has impacted their lives.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Music Junkies. I'm your host, Annette Smith, and today's guest, he's known as the most charismatic man. Wow, you can tell by his hair. Look at his hair. It's so amazing. I love it. Right? He's an actor, content creator, host of Prince of Fresh Air, and this is why I reached out to you, because first of all, I love the title. Second of all, it's such a great podcast. Born and raised in New York City, and it's sunny there today, just like it's sunny here today in Calgary. So please welcome Percy Brown. Look at
That's right. Thank you for having me. Look, let me just say something real quick. We was talking a little bit off camera. I went outside today to go work out, and I'm just minding my business, and someone asked me, "Hey, you look familiar." I'm like, "Really?" I get that quite often. That they thought I was Tom Cruise, so that's how my morning started.
They're like Mission Impossible 2, right? Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. So before we jump in and dive into all your deep, dark secrets, what was your experience putting your playlist together for me today?
When you first reached out to me, I had no idea what type of songs I was going to put on. Mostly, spoiler alert, there's not going to be a lot of, I grew up in New York. So, I grew up listening to a lot of, rap music, hip hop.
Yeah.
And trust me, I love it. But I think there's some songs out there on my playlist that people are going to be shocked to hear and that I'm a fan of. So I won't give any spoilers yet. You're going to have to tune in and listen. But, this playlist is something that it made me go all the way back. It wasn't that far ago, but high school, a little bit of middle school, college. And, those are songs that helped me throughout periods of my time, whether it was acting, just personal, or just living life. So, this was a playlist. And it took me it only took me like 5 minutes to kind of get it together. So,
wow.
I'm looking forward to sharing it, because I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised what they hear.
I love it. Well, let's not keep them waiting. Let's jump right into it. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. First song. Right. If you don't know the song title from just the beginning, right, we have some problems, but it is Eye of the Tiger. And who doesn't love that song?
That, I love it. So I'll tell you this story. So this is actually not something that is, directly personal to me, but I'm a huge fan of Supernatural, the TV show starring Jensen Ackles.
Okay, before you go any further, are you Dean or Sam?
100% Dean.
Wow. Okay.
Now I gotta say I have the physique, or I should say the height of Sam, but I think in terms of character, I'm definitely Dean. I could be smug, I could be obviously charismatic. So I love both of the characters. Let me say that, but Dean is my guy, and that's why I had to start with this song because I've been watching the show since high school, and I will admit I've watched the show probably like 5 times. From season 1 to season 14. So, if you don't know the scene, I forget what season it was, but Jensen Ackles, he actually played the song in one of the episodes. And at the end of the episode, he actually, I think the director let him, go out in his car, which was a 1967 Chevy Impala. And this was an outtake. So he was just jamming out to the scene. He got on top of the car, which is named Baby, if you don't know. And he was just jamming out. He was playing air guitar with his leg. It's one of the most memorable scenes of the show. And as a huge fan, I had to include that because every time I hear the song, I think of him on that car.
I love it. And it's so crazy because lots of people that wouldn't even know, my daughter loves Supernatural as well. And we've probably watched it about 4 times around. So we're with you there. And I love this show. I absolutely love this show. I think it's hilarious. But my daughter loves this song, and this is her wakeboarding song. She only wakeboards to this.
Really?
Yeah.
I could get it. So it's actually funny. So I create fitness content on Instagram, and I actually use the song, and I was actually surprised how many people reached out and left comments about how much they love the song because it's not I'm not from that generation. I just put that out there. Not, I'm not exactly sure what year, but I think this what the 1990s, early 2000s. So if I was born, I was a very little kid. So I didn't grow up in that era, but hearing this song was tremendous, and I think anybody or everybody's heard the song at least once in their life. So it
That's
was a good
right.
first choice.
Especially if they're a Rocky fan, for sure, right? Just is.
Oh, how could I forget that? How could I forget that? Silly me.
I love it. Okay, so you've obviously did a lot of acting. I want to hear about like your worst acting experience.
Oh, you know what? So I have to share the story. And I'm not gonna name names, so I want to throw them under the bus. Not that they're acting anymore. So, high school. I worked with a professional theater company called Epic Theater, based in New York, non for profit. And so, they had ties to certain performers high schools in the city, and I got to work with them. A lot of Broadway actors, professional actors you would have seen on TV. And so we was doing the play. It was Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing, and we were doing the show in Chinatown. So it was out of school, and so I'm actually on stage, and so me and I was Don Pedro, and I was on stage, and so we just finished a scene, and part of the scene was like you, so it was switch. There was a girl downstage, right, for people who know theater, so that's towards the audience, and so the spotlight's on her. She's doing a monologue, and so we just sitting in the dark, waiting for the cue, and she freezes in the middle of the monologue. Now, if you ever done Shakespeare, it's not the same as doing improv. You can't just start, spewing out stuff just to make it cohesive. You have to know, Shakespeare. And so she stops in the middle of the monologue and she says line. I'm not making fun of her, because it's high school, but this is a professional theater company we're working for. We have a paid audience, and she says line. So nobody says anything. She says line again. And then she says line again. So now I'm stuck in a position where it's like, this is going on too long. You can't be on stage for more than 2 seconds when nobody saying anything, or it's very awkward. So instead, I just start talking. They immediately switch the lights to my scene. And then after, I cut I get back on focus. There was I forgot what role, but one of my good friends at the time, he was supposed to come on stage right after. He was nowhere to be found. Turns out he was on Facebook downstairs in the green room. So this is stuff you have to deal with as a professional. So it was a fun time. It was a crazy time though at the time, but I have to look back and laugh because that was kind of one of the most mind blowing experiences I ever had.
Do you have any unusual rituals that you have to do before you get on stage?
When I was on stage, I don't think I really had a ritual. One of the things I would do is, right before the audience came in, I would get on stage and I would just look around, get a feel of the stage again, and just focus on the important stuff, because at the time of show, I memorized more book, I know what I'm doing. So it's just nice just to get the layout before it fills up, because usually in rehearsal is usually empty with maybe the well, obviously the director, the assistant, the tech people. So now, just basking in the glory and realizing this is actually about to happen. I had some songs, and we'll hear them, but I had some songs I would play, a couple minutes before showtime. But yeah, I didn't have anything crazy.
Nothing crazy. That's
No.
okay, right? Like I've heard really wacky stuff over the years where people need, and I think if I might start, like if I was a musician, I think it might be alcohol.
No.
Right? Some kind of substance to get my energy up and excite, maybe just in the beginning when you're like brand new in the industry. Right. But
Right.
then after a while, you're like, I'm just used to this. It's like public speaking. After a while, you're like, whatever. I've did this before many, many times. It's all good.
Yeah, I don't judge people. At the end of the day, everybody's gonna have their own purpose, own way of getting into character. Getting the mood. At this point though, I will say like during the pandemic, when we was all stuck in the house, I remember at a time where I was vaping all the time. So right before auditions, I would hit the vape at least 20 times, get that rush. So then when it's time for the camera to get cut on, I felt like I was in the moment. But now I don't do that anymore. So now when I right before an audition, I just do a little shadow boxing. I just pretend like I'm boxing. I'm facing an opponent just because for me, I don't care how much you prepare. Sometimes when you have a major casting director or a director in the room, or whether it's Zoom or in person, sometimes you can get a little nervous, and I still get nervous. Trust me. I think if you don't get nervous, you don't enjoy what you do. So that's just one of the ways just to loosen up, just to throw a couple combos, duck the head a little bit like a Mike Tyson, and
Yeah,
then I'm good to go.
that's right. So speaking of Mike Tyson, who are you going for?
Ooh, good question. I've had this talk with a lot of buddies who's primarily focused in boxing. You know, I, I like Mike Tyson. I didn't grow up in his time. I didn't get to watch all his fights. I get to watch him on YouTube, obviously. But the truth is, he's 57. He has health issues. It's clear that you know he still has that instinct, but he's not 20s, 30s, even early 40s anymore. He's pushing
Yeah.
60, and he's facing a guy. A lot of people think Jake Paul is not a real boxer, and that's up for debate. But you can't deny that he's been out there with some tough people. So I don't know what's going to happen. I do hope Mike Tyson, I think
Yeah.
he's going to go out there and go for it. But 10 rounds is not something he does often, especially at his age anymore. So I don't know. I don't have a dog really, but I do hope just for nostalgia that Mike Tyson wins.
Yeah. And see, I grew up in the Mike Tyson era, and all I think about is he's gonna punch him through a fucking wall. Like, I don't care how old he is. I just feel like the guy, first of all, barely lasts even one round with his opponent. So it's going to be interesting for sure. And I don't know. I feel like he is going to do whatever he can to win, because I think, he had this amazing career and then this awful downfall and then a little bit back and then prison and then getting out, reestablishing, working on himself to go out fighting,
Right.
I just to fighting this guy and losing. I think he might like take his own life after that. I don't know. Like, I don't think it's going to be good for his psyche at all. I just feel like, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm watching it. My husband used to be a boxer, and he's just like, he just can't wrap his head around this whole thing at all. And I'm like, well, I'm buying it. So we're going to have a Tyson party. And he's just like, oh, it's going to be hard for me to watch.
Yeah, I'm watching it. Will I be paying for it? That's to be continued. But I think people. I get, sometimes we also have to be realistic, and I know a lot of people who are huge fans of Mike Tyson saying
Yeah.
he's going to win, but I don't care how great you were in your prime. Eventually, Father Time is undefeated, and I do think in the early rounds he can get the job done, but the longer it goes on, Jake Paul is not a slouch. People might not view him as a professional boxer in the way of Mike Tyson, but truth be told, if Mike Tyson was to lose, it depends on how serious he's taking it, which I'm pretty sure he
Yeah.
is. At his age, which one is a little more important to him, the money or beating Jake Paul? So I think he could look at this and be like, I've been out of the game a little bit, even though I know he fought Roy Jones previously, but he knows he's not in his 20s fighting for championship gold anymore. So I still think he's going to win, but I think he'll be even if he lose, he'll still be a victor because he's going out there improving people. Age ain't nothing but a number.
That's right. I love it. All right, next song.
Let's do it.
So Safe and Sound. Great song.
I can lift you up. Oh, I'm sorry. I may not be on that.
I love
I'm not
it.
ready for the voice yet. Uh, so I love this song. A lot of my college buddies and people who know me, especially in college, knows about the song. I used to sing the song every morning right before class in the shower. I know the lyrics from the top to bottom. And this is a song. Actually, funny story. So in my senior year in high school, I was doing magic, car magic around the city, and I was getting some some fans and supporters. I would say rather supporters. So I got an opportunity to perform for Benelstedt Family Circus, a well-known family circus touring company, and downtown Manhattan. And so one day after school, when I knew I had the gig, I just listened to the song the whole time. I was prepared for the routine. I got down there, and right before my turn, I just had the song on repeat. I can lift you up as I'm practicing, and I think it was a learning experience for me because it was my first time performing.
It's the whole theme is how I would sacrifice my heart, my soul, everything. I would burn everything for him. I love him so much. So it's called Sacrificial Love, and it's got like organic drums and all. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I'm excited about it. It's very different.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So my husband's like, oh, what are we gonna do if we get in an argument? I'm like, then I'll write like a mean song.
I'm gonna redub some stuff, honey. Redub some
I'll have to rethink that because sometimes like we'll have sex and I'll like roll over and I'll start like writing. He goes, no, you're not doing this right now. I'm like, oh yes, I am. He's like, are you literally writing down lyrics right now? I'm like, yeah, I feel very moved right now. I need to do this. But I mean, it's fun,
Yeah, it's awesome. Whatever, builds that to go and write. That's what you want. You're inspiring me, babe. Appreciate it.
It's
right?
fun.
I could just go to sleep or you could inspire me. So I love it.
It's fun.
I love it. Next song. I love these guys. My previous career before I got into finance was a massage therapist. So obviously Enya was huge in my clinic. I used to love playing Enya when I did massages.
Yeah, so early 1990s, I would say, right? Yeah, early 1990s. Yeah. I think that song and that type of music is what actually I bring into my music now, as far as my music's very hypnotic, and that music is so like it just kind of just pulls you in and you're just like, wow. But my fondest memory of that, when I was 19, 20 years old, I lived near Washington, D.C., and the drinking age back then was 18. But I used to go into Washington, D.C. all the time, and they used to have a club there called the Vault. And it used to be an old bank. And it was just the way you would picture an old bank, just very cold. You'd see all the vaults everywhere. And it's magical now that you think about it. It'd be like the most amazing place for a rave. But it was a big club in DC called the Vault, and you'd walk in and that song would be playing and it would just be like echoing through the whole place. And it was mesmerizing. And I love it. And it's always something that's going to stay with me. And I think that's made me who I am today, and how this type of melodic techno talks to my soul, just that that hypnotic feeling.
Yeah, I love listening to music like that. I never really thought that I was a lyric person. Sometimes certain songs, not all songs where I'm like, oh, I love the lyrics. There's maybe probably 30 songs that I feel like that.
That you resonate with.
Yeah, like lyrically wise. But it's mostly the feeling, like how Return to Innocence makes me feel. I remember just laying on my carpet and playing this song when we would have parties and everybody was kind of drunk or whatever. And I would just be in my own world, just going. And I never really found anybody that could really connect with music like that with me. Sometimes I'm kind of weird about it. I'm like, oh, listen to this song. Listen to the way we were we went to a lube wrestling thing on Friday.
No way, that's rad.
It's fucking out of control. I thought it was like wrestling. I thought I was walking into this environment where they were gonna fist fight and pull hair. Wasn't quite sure. It was at a really trashy bar here in Alberta. So that's what my expectations were. but it was like you pull a ball out and it's like, oh, how to win this round is humping. So like they would hump each other. And how do you win this round? It's spanking. And I'm like, this is freaking warped. But anyways, we went
oh my gosh, that's great.
It's so crazy. So we experienced that for the first time. So I was under the impression totally different. But even with music, I was like, we were listening to some tunes before, an old school rave, like when we would rave like in a farmer's field, right? Like you just
oh yeah,
loose fitting pants and a crop top, and that's what you raved in, right? Nothing. Your hair was funky. That's all we cared about, was like crazy wild hair. Well, that's what I cared about anyways, like wild hair. And I was listening to all this old kind of trance and all this other stuff. And I was saying to my husband constantly, oh, listen to this drop and listen. And he grew up with punk, so he enjoys it when I do that. But he's just like, you hear music so differently than I've ever. Lots of people say that, but I just love that aspect. So I love that you explain your music like that, because that's why I think your song, it feels to me different. I like it. Like when you say, oh, the drop, like I can relate to it. So I love your song.
Very hypnotic, very it just pulls you in and like sucks you in, and you're just like, so that song that you just played was definitely like a pivotal point in my life, and I think that stays with me, and that's what I try to replicate in today's world.
So take me back to, like, what was your first album you ever bought?
I never bought one.
Never.
I know. No, that's what's so strange about me, is I was never really into music.
Oh, wow.
Mark and I never even went to a rave or club. So I did when I was younger, living in Washington, D.C., up until I was like 21. And then I moved to California. And then him and I, we never went to clubs, we were just all outdoorsy people. It wasn't until I was 45. So I never bought an album. I never, I would listen to music on the radio. That was it. I was never really into music.
No concerts or anything like that?
Nope.
Oh,
no concerts, nothing. I just wasn't a part of me. I just didn't really feel like I connected to it. And then I think the big turn for me was when I was turning 45, and I'm 53 right now. My husband had this idea because he had some friends in the Burning Man community, and they were doing like an event downtown. Actually, the Ego Trip, the Burning Man camp that I'm now a part of, was having a big fundraiser called Leather and Lace. And sorry, I'm going off topic a little bit, but he thought it would, just to give you an idea, I just didn't buy albums or play music. So he was like, you know what, instead of getting her flowers, I'm actually going to get her tickets, and we're going to go to this, rave and party until 4 a.m. We're going to try this out, And I was just like, oh, I can't do that. That's not what we do. But I was like, okay, and it's cute if looking back at those pictures, like I wore this like cute little conservative black leather dress. It was like pretty conservative too, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But man, boy, did I have the time of my life. I was like, what? I was like, this is what other people do. I was like, wow, and that was it. That was a big turning point.
I want to go to Burning Man. I haven't been.
Burning Man, and just like going out and getting really dolled up and feeling really sexy and dancing with your husband until like 4 a.m. Is the best medicine ever for a relationship. So I'm 53. So we started 8 years ago. We've never missed one of my camps, big parties. I do 3 or 4 a year. And actually we go to a lot of parties now. We probably go out like at least twice a month and dance until the wee hours of the night, and just have the time of our lives. And he's 60 and I'm 53, but all of our friends are in their 20s. They all like love us, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. But so going back to your question with music, I never bought anything, and just until 2 years ago when I started DJing, I started really like getting into music more so.
Yeah, I love that. Well, pick your brain about Burning Man another time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Next song. I love the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh yeah. So that one was I was 20 years old on a subway. I was working in Washington, D.C. I was like a junior analyst, and I didn't go to college. I just went straight from high school to working in the city. And I was listening to Californication, Red Hot Chili Peppers on my headphones, and I was on the subway, and I was looking around, and I was like, everybody on there looked like just drones, like just like robots and just miserable. And I was like, no, this is not happening. I'm not going to live this life. And that was when I was listening to this song, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna move to California. And like the next day, I quit my job and I sold everything I owned, which wasn't a whole lot. I packed up my Jeep, no job, no nothing, just drove west and came to California.
Wow.
Yeah, so great
That's
decision.
super brave. Hey.
Yeah, it was awesome.
What were you like in high school?
I didn't really like high school.
Yeah.
So I didn't go very much, unfortunately. And it's funny, my daughter actually was just at my mom's house a couple months ago, and she found some old things that I used to write in high school. And it was like letters to my mom and letters, and basically they were pretty funny because my daughter was reading to me over the phone, and it basically said, I don't think college is for me. I don't need to go to college. I'm like, and I basically said, I have a lot of creative ideas and a lot of people like me. So I feel like I can get by on life just with my personality. And literally, that's what I wrote. And then I was trying to convince them that I'm not going to college, and I would write these letters of all these reasons why I didn't need it, which is pretty funny because I mean, like, I take on these ideas and I manifest them. The book and the music. I ended up writing a movie that I sold. I became a professional bodybuilder at 50 years old I didn't work out. So I do kind of still, I look back at those letters, I'm like, yeah, I guess I, kind of did it. Not just my personality, but just my personality being focused and being uber obsessed with things. So,
yeah. So what made you start to get uber obsessed with working out?
So that's a good story because I actually had a friend that I knew really well that decided she was going to do it, and she lost 70 pounds, and she was young. She was like in her 20s. But what intrigued me was she was a good friend. So I knew she didn't do drugs, and I knew she didn't have good genetics. And so that's what inspired me, because prior to her doing it, I was always thinking, okay, to look like that, you need to be doing drugs, or you have to have good genetics, or you have to be at the gym like 3 hours a day. And I'm not doing any of that. So she inspired me to challenge myself to see if because I didn't have good genetics either. At 40, I actually started working out at 47 years old. So without any like training whatsoever, could I just get a coach and have them kind of help me with my diet and tell me what to eat, and only spend like 45 minutes an hour at the gym, 4 days a week, and clean up my diet? Was that possible? And I did it just to see if it was even possible at my age. And so I started at 47, I did a couple shows, and at 50, I got my pro card as a pro bodybuilder.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. And I did it for like 2 years, and then the music came into my life, and I decided, okay, I'm not going to do pro bodybuilding anymore, but I still try to balance, I still work out and have good balance in that sense, but try to put the working out before the music, but usually it's music before the working out.
Music makes you work out. I have to listen to music before I work out, so I'm not working out.
It's true.
It's quite an accomplishment. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really something. I surprised myself, and yeah.
I love it. All right, next song. Hotel California, Eagles.
Yeah, so this is why I didn't go to school. So back then, obviously, songs were always played on the radio, and Eagles was really big. So this is back in the 1980s, and I always had this like running joke with my friends that if a song from the Eagles came on, we weren't going to go to school. And
And then you're like calling the radio station.
yeah, so Eagles made me miss a lot of school. I think unfortunately I skipped probably 80 days my senior year and even my junior year. It was not good. So and I wasn't even doing anything like bad. I just didn't have the capacity to sit there in a class all day. I just wanted to do other stuff. And so yeah, so the Eagles is always kind of a very fond memory of me driving to school and then the Eagles song coming on and me driving somewhere else.
I love it. If you could bring one thing back from the 80s, what would you bring?
Let's see. What I only say this because I wanted a pair and I didn't have a pair. It's a parachute pants.
Yeah. Nice.
I always wanted them and I never had them. My family didn't have the money to go buy them. And it's one of those things that I used to look back at the 80s and think, God, I wish I had a pair of parachute pants because they used to be really big back then.
Yeah.
They had their time, you know.
They did.
I wish that I used to have a bi-level haircut, you know, where it was like bi-level and then longer. And I'm glad that did not come back. I look back at pictures where I like feathered my hair and I had this like weird bi-level and I'm like, God, that's horrible.
I look back and I wasn't a big crimper. I was more the person that did the wave. Like I did the wave one all the time. And then I would just like wave my bangs and they would just be like up there. And pink and blue eyeshadow. I didn't wear a lot of makeup, but that was like pink and blue.
That was your thing. That's funny. We're probably about you're 50-ish. How old are you? Yeah. 50-ish. Yeah. Good times.
Crazy. I miss it. I love the 80s. I love when I have somebody on my show that is around my age and we can talk about the 80s.
Yeah. I love the fact we didn't have social media. I'm so glad there's no social media. I can't imagine if there was.
It would be crazy. Do you have any pet peeves? Do you have anything that drives you crazy?
The first thing that comes to mind is like crinkling plastic. That's like, you know, that drives me crazy. And when my kids don't do the dishes. That's my two things. The first two things that come to mind, it's like I don't know where we went wrong with that. They still don't, like, they come over and they just don't do dishes. I'm like, how's that happen?
What do you got kind of going on in your career over the next, call it 3 to 6 months, that you want to maybe share?
Definitely making more music. So I have this one song done and I'll probably get this one going and then have another song going. I really like the idea of creating different music videos too. And putting it in like a real cool setting. Like the last one I did was in a dark tunnel with fire performers. So and I actually just learned last week, I'm very excited about it. And it kind of goes with this sacrificial love song. I learned how to eat fire, like, you know, take the fire and put it down your throat.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then it's pretty fun. And then you take a little bit of the fumes just in your mouth. And then when you take the fire out, you can actually blow fire, you know. So I guess that's a little bit of more of a short-term goal in the next 3 months, is kind of perfect my fire breathing and more music. My husband and I are going to travel in June, and I would love to get a DJ event in Berlin. So we're going to stay in Berlin like 3 days. And obviously Berlin is really big into the techno scene, and my music I feel would be a really cool fit for like Berghain or the Kit Kat Club, because it's very like sexual and sensual and dark, and it would just be really amazing to actually DJ to that crowd. So as far as career goals, that's another one of mine. I did have somebody ask me if I would be open to DJing naked, and I was like, nah, I gotta have some boundaries.
An interesting question. Like,
and I was like, I really want to DJ in Berlin, but I think, and my husband's so sweet. He's like, what? They won't just take pasties, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, I appreciate the support, sweetheart, but I'm not doing pasties either.
Only guys
But,
have asked that question, you know what I mean?
but I love that fact that he's not like, troubled, where I think some husbands would be like, oh, I don't like, you gotta dress in that way, or, as long as I'm with him and people know I'm with him, he doesn't care. He's like, great. Am I
I love it. What about
sexy when you have fun? That's great.
that's all
Yeah, so I would music definitely in the next couple months, focusing on music.
Are you thinking about writing again? Anything like that coming up for you at all? Or do you just feel like you're really
No,
on your music?
I'm just there's just more music. I wrote this last song. I did this last song in about 2 weeks. And I don't sleep. I have a day job too, and I get so like, I just have to get it out. So sometimes I wish I had like 3 or 4 days to work on stuff just to kind of keep in that flow. But I can't. So I'm always trying to focus on my life balance.